Oh my God. Felix just sent me a text message. Okay, breaking news. Okay. Breaking motherfucking news. Friend of the show, sexy gentleman, the conservative movement's sexiest gentleman, Tom Fitton, fitting this dick in your mom's mouth, apparently was giving legal advice to Donald Trump, which is partially the reason why Donald Trump refused to turn over the classified documents. Oh my God, this is the greatest thing that could have happened. Hold on one second. We're going there right now. Breaking news, folks. Literally fresh off the press. Fresh off the press. CNN reports that Trump began taking legal advice from Tom Fitton of right-wing activist group Judicial Watch. Oh my God.
Brand new CNN reporting. Despite Donald Trump's public claims that he's been cooperating with the National Archives, he's been increasingly listening to outside legal advice to do the exact opposite. And now Trump allies are becoming increasingly concerned about a potential indictment. CNN's Kristen Holmes and Gabby Orr are part of the team breaking this new reporting. Gabby, tell us about this legal advice Trump's getting about cooperating with the archives.
Well, Jake, we know some of the folks who have been helping Trump navigate these matters for the past couple of months. You know, Christina Bobb, Jim Trusty, Evan Corcoran. Those are familiar names. But what we now know is that Trump began taking advice from Tom Fitton, who is the head of a conservative legal activism group, Judicial Watch, earlier this year.
For those of you who don't know, classic. I mean, Tom Fitton is a classic, man, okay? I mean, this is a big W for friends and lovers of Tom Fitton, all of your moms in general. This is incredible. This is incredible news. I love it.
Shortly after he returned those 15 boxes to the National Archives in January. And what Fitton was telling Trump behind the scenes is really interesting because he was essentially saying, in his belief, Trump had full authority over the documents that he brought from the White House to Mar-a-Lago at the end of his presidency, that he never should have returned documents to archives in the first place, and that if the archives came knocking again, that he shouldn't turn over any more documents. Now, we know that Trump didn't always listen to Tom Fitton because in June, during that meeting with federal investigators, his attorneys did turn over additional documents. But this is, it really speaks to sort of the behind-the-scenes advice that he was getting from people outside of his legal team.
And Kristen, it's not just Trump allies, we should know, worried about a possible indictment. Sources say Donald Trump himself is even posing questions about it to his inner circle about whether or not he's going to get indicted.
That's right. So we knew he had been grilling his attorneys on whether or not they believed he would be indicted, at times even expressing skepticism that that would ever happen. But we've since learned that these conversations have expanded to members of his inner circle, asking what do they believe the end game is going to be? Do they believe he's going to be indicted? And many of these sources are telling us they think it's because he is actually concerned. Now, one of them noted to me that while, of course, Donald Trump has been in legal peril before, even when he was president, this time did feel different and potentially more dangerous, particularly given that he doesn't have that same legal protection he had in the executive office.
And Gabby, part of the effort to get the documents back.
I love like right-wingers that have almost always had like a pretty favorable experience with the criminal justice system routinely just forget that like you need to have competent lawyers to be able to get away from shit like this. So they just go after people like Tom Fitton or Rudy Giuliani and get legal advice from some of the biggest fucking losers. Or in the case of Alex Jones, for example, he literally hired like a state attorney. You know what I mean? Like that guy doesn't have to be a good lawyer, man. He's already working with the court. It's home turf. Every time he's ever prosecuted someone, it's been done on the home turf. He's got home turf advantage. You need like defense attorneys. You know what I mean? Sharks. So if you go after like fucking dumbass grifters, then you're fucked.
Included using FedEx to deliver letters from brand new CNN.
Well, you're a fucking moron. Literally cannot hear things you don't want to hear from people. You hit up Tom fucking Fitton. Yeah. No defense attorney would touch it. Are you kidding me, dude? Lawyers are scumbags. There are like probably 1,000 ambulance chasers that would do a better job than like any random fucking famous Republican legal advisor. Are you crazy? Do you not know what fucking lawyers do, man? Are you out of your mind?
With all these leaks.
This is the guy. Like, if your guy's hitting the gym instead of hitting the books, dude, you're fucked.
So we got the warrant, but there's this underlying affidavit and some other materials. And the underlying affidavit's important because typically, I'll warn you, I'm not a criminal lawyer. I'm not a lawyer. But I've seen enough of this material to tell you, I'm pretty sure I know what I'm talking about. That the affidavit is the material given by the FBI, written, usually it's an FBI agent who signs it, detailing what essentially they're investigating and why they think there's probable cause that crimes were committed. And that's where all the details are. What was the fundamental basis for this raid? And as I'm suggesting, it's all based on lies and dishonesty, and I'm sure the affidavit, and it will eventually be released largely fully, I think, will disclose that. Now, of course, the FBI's position, the Justice Department's position, and the court ordered the Justice Department and the FBI to respond to Judicial Watch's demands that this material be unsealed. It was filed under seal, which means it's not public. And so Judicial Watch filed its brief immediately, and then these media organizations came in following our lead, also asking for the material. So the government had to respond to us. That's the great thing about America still. I mean, I know I'm yelling about all of this, but there's still this due process. There's still this process of law that allows little old Judicial Watch to go in there and hold the Justice Department and the FBI, or attempt to hold them accountable under the law for this unprecedented raid on former President Trump. And I'm honored that we're able to do this, and I'm gratified to be in a country that still allows us to do this. And the court, I'm not all that thrilled. The court approved the warrant, but he did move quickly here. And he said the government needs to respond, and they had to respond by earlier this week, and then he quickly held a hearing. Now, the government's response was, we shouldn't have to release anything because it's a criminal case, and it might hurt our criminal case. Well,
yeah, it's bullshit.
That's not the rule of law.
Yeah.
We don't want to release.
No, that's literally that is the rule of law. Like, no, that's quite literally the rule of law. The only reason why this is different is because it's the president, ex-president. No, that's actually how the rule, like, that's how the rule of law works, as a matter of fact. Like, in 99.9% of circumstances, especially when there's an ongoing investigation, there's no world in which the federal government's like, oh, here, let's fucking reveal literally our current ongoing investigation in the midst of an ongoing investigation just because the other side asked for it. No, that's not how that works. And as a matter of fact, the only reason why the magistrate judge allowed the release of this affidavit was because of the incredible circumstances behind raiding the home of a former president. And that's why this really crazy affidavit reveal happened.
And we're the Justice Department, and that's the end of the discussion. Of course, that's not what the court is supposed to do. And the court rejected that in response to Judicial Watch and the media requests. This is what we said. It seems like the Biden Justice Department is telling the court what to do. Respectfully, the court should make its own independent assessment of the compelling public interest in transparency about this abusive raid. The criminal investigation the Biden administration is covering up reeks of corruption and dishonesty and is based on a reinvention of law about presidential records that is at odds with the U.S. Constitution, court rulings, federal statutes, and prior government legal positions and practice. No administration should be able to raid the home of a former president and putative presidential candidate.
Wait, what? Why not? Why not? Like, what the fuck does that mean? What kind of precedent is that? Yeah, you can do murders as the president. You know what I mean? But if you're the former president, even after you're no longer president, we can't do that. Like, they ran the gamut on this when Trump was president, right? Part of the reason why Trump wanted to get reelected was so that he could continue doing whatever the fuck he wanted to without any sort of legal scrutiny, right? So we could say like, oh, the powers of the executive, they're awesome. You can't touch me, yada, yada, yada. Like, they think that you should have immunity forever. Like, there should be a protective barrier over you from any kind of legal circumstance. You can carry all the legal documents you want. You can hold on to classified information if you want. You can even like literally just go and run over someone with a car, and no investigation can ever be conducted into that because you're the ex-president.
Based on secret reasons. Well, that's actually what I said. That's not what our lawyers said. Let me see what our lawyer.
He's so bad, dude. He's so bad. He is literally like a dumb jock. Okay? If this is the best Trump has, they are so cooked. I'm going to keep it real. Oh, Jesus Christ. He's not the lawyer. I know. But he's giving legal advice to Donald Trump. So who cares? Donald Trump apparently held the classified information, according to CNN, that we just showed you. He held on to the classified information by listening to Tom Fitton's legal advice. Looks like someone tried to draw John Travolta from memory. Yeah, he somehow looks like more fucked up than John Travolta in the way that John Travolta currently looks. Dude, the dude is the artesian build of lawyers, holy balls. Dude didn't even change out his golf clothes before the press conference. That's the only thing he wears. I don't know if you know this, but Tom Fitton usually doesn't wear sleeves, okay? It's a rare and unique circumstance if you see this man wearing sleeves. Look, he's got it and he's flaunting it. I don't have a problem with that. He's sexy. There's one type of slander against Tom Fitton that I'm not going to stand for, and that's like saying he's not hot, because he is fucking hot.
Lawyers said. The public interest in the contents of the affidavit cannot be understated. The secrecy surrounding the search warrant and the affidavit that led to its issuance has caused the nation to convulse with intrigue and harmful speculation that will only increase the longer the truth is kept from the public. The heat must be replaced with light, and soon. Maintaining the seal, meaning keeping the records under seal, will only fuel more speculation, uncertainty, leaks, and political intrigue, and it will also serve to undermine public confidence in the fair administration of justice and equal protection.
It is always funny, though, seeing like all the people in Trump's legal counsel are just like television lawyers. Like, they are significantly more invested in their own brand and being on television or being in front of a camera than like actually doing the legal work necessary. And there is a lot of legal work necessary in this situation because Donald Trump, much like Alex Jones, thinks he is impossible to take down. So will routinely do things that go completely against legal counsel and will ruin any potential legal maneuver that their counsel might be trying to do. So they're kind of ungovernable in that way. So it's just like a perfectly chaotic situation where on the one hand, your client is ungovernable, okay? On the other hand, you yourself are not exactly interested in like doing a great job other than just how much more media presence you'll have in the aftermath of this, because he just doesn't pay them either. He's the classic rich guy who doesn't fucking pay their lawyers, doesn't pay their contractors. So there's that part too. So it's just awesome. It's held together exclusively by a Republican Party that has a pretty dominant media infrastructure that is doing everything they can post like post-mortem, I guess post hoc, tying everything that he's doing together like he actually intended to do it. And he did it. He did it for 4 years. He operated like this for 4 years. But now that he doesn't have power, now that he's no longer in office, he kind of can't do that as well.
Protection of the law. Concerning the gravity of this unprecedented action by the government, at a minimum, the court should review the affidavit line by line to determine what information may be disclosed and what information may be redacted to balance the competing concerns at issue. And the court agreed with us, and that's exactly what he told the government at a hearing he ordered earlier this week. It was on Thursday of this week in West Palm Beach. Judicial Watch lawyers were there. Our local counsel, Jim Moon, was responding, made argument for us. The big lawyers, big league lawyers for the New York Times, et cetera, they made arguments. And of course, the Justice Department came in and they tried to make arguments. And the court rejected outright the Justice Department's theory that they should be able to redact everything, because he said, I've looked at this and I've decided, and I'm inclined to agree, that there's certain materials here that can be released. So we won. Now, are we going to get anything released? That remains to be seen, because there's always the right of appeal, practically speaking. But the court ordered the Justice Department to file something, presumably that releases some material, and the court will look at it, and if he disagrees with them, he will call them in and have a secret meeting, what there's called an ex parte discussion with them about the redactions, and who knows where it will go from there. So as soon as next week, who knows, maybe the government will file something the court immediately likes, and we get a new version of the affidavit, or a version of the affidavit that has more information. Or maybe the fight just goes on for months and months and months, which of course is what the Justice Department wants, right? It's about destroying Trump. It's about causing political heartburn for their political opponents. And this has been the case with prior Justice Department, FBI.
I'm not kidding when I say I think YouTube lawyers will do a better job than this guy. Television lawyers are more comfortable than YouTube lawyers. In order to be a good lawyer, you have to be a fucking scumbag, low-life, vulture, parasite, shark, right? And television lawyers are more comfortable than YouTube lawyers. Like, YouTube lawyers still need to fucking test their mettle. You know what I mean? They still want to earn it. TikTok lawyers are the best for that reason. You do a murder, your TikTok lawyer is getting you out of that murder, okay? He looks like a gym teacher that got lost, entered a law classroom, and is just winging it. Bro, he has no law degree.
Smears and attacks on Trump. They come out with all these leaks and innuendo suggesting that he did something terrible, and none of it pans out. That's what happened.
Trump would have been better off going to LegalZoom, man.
With Russia, and I guarantee it's what's happening here. Just as with Russia, there was no good faith basis to go after him and spy on him. And as I've explained to you quite deliberately here and specifically, there was no good faith basis to target him here.
Yeah, you really nailed it. Yeah, it turns out his advice is partially the reason why Trump kept some of the classified documents. So that's pretty fire. Love that. Big fan of that, personally. Thank you. Before we get to the student debt forgiveness, let's take a look at the affidavit release, because there's going to be some more information on that. Does anyone have any news stories that they've seen so far? Because this just dropped. This happened just now. Let me see if I can find it. Because today was the last day for the Trump affidavit. It's going to come out tomorrow or today. The DOJ is to provide legal memorandum explaining the redactions for the FBI affidavit. Obviously, that release was going to have a fuck ton of redacted parts in it because it's an ongoing active investigation. So clearly, when there's an ongoing and active investigation, obviously, when you unseal when you unseal an affidavit, it's going to have a lot of information in there, like who you're working with, what angles they're covering. Most of that is going to be redacted.
Department submitting proposed redactions today for the affidavit used to justify the search of former President Trump's Florida estate. The department is also providing a legal memorandum explaining why they think that information should be kept from public view. A judge is then considering those redactions and weighing whether to make any of the affidavit public. ABC News investigative reporter Catherine Falders is in Washington with more on this. Catherine, how soon could we see a ruling on this, and what's the likelihood that the DOJ appeals this decision if it's not a full sealing of the affidavit?
So there's a lot of unknowns here. Look, I think it's unlikely that we will see a ruling on this from the judge today. Look, I think it's going to be this weeks-long process. But what's likely to happen and what will happen and what's happening now is that DOJ will submit these redactions. The judge says he will then review them. He could call this private conference where they discuss them. He could himself, the judge said last week, submit his...
I saw Ben Shapiro saying the PPP loan wasn't his. That's some real estate agent in LA. What website is that? And can you tell if Daily Wire got a PPP loan? Sorry, we looked. We looked long and hard with the hive mind of this community, and we could not find if Ben Shapiro's umbrella company that owns, like Bentkey, that owns Daily Wire, actually got a PPP loan or not. We couldn't find it. They might have, but I think they hid it too well, even if they did. But yes, I already mentioned on the day that it came out that it wasn't actually the Ben Shapiro, the real Ben Shapiro. I talked about it.
His own redactions and then maybe compare notes in a way. So a ruling on this is not imminent. It's something that could come in the coming weeks. But look, whatever the judge decides, DOJ could ultimately and probably will appeal it if the judge does choose to release portions of it that DOJ may take issue with.
Now, the DOJ has said in these court arguments that in order to protect the interest of national security, the interest of the investigation, et cetera, that so much of this document would have to be redacted that it'll end up being meaningless.
Talk about a short straw having the same name as Ben Shapiro. My friend, have you never been around like, I don't know, have you never been in a community where there's a lot of Jewish people? Like, Ben Shapiro is an incredibly common name, dude. What the fuck? Benjamin Shapiro is a very common name. It's like being surprised that there's a lot of dudes named Hasan in Istanbul. You know what I mean?
Has there been any more information on why that is, on why they don't see anything in this affidavit that should be made public?
Well, DOJ has said that they think not only could it impact cooperating witnesses now, but potential witnesses who they could be negotiating with or who may come forward to talk more about Trump's handling of documents. The other thing that was interesting here, too, and the argument that DOJ made was that releasing it could also impact future investigations or ongoing investigations that seem to be separate from this one, but maybe have similar witnesses. It could also reveal that type of information. DOJ said in court that even if they did...
As a Jew, I'm really uncomfortable with you keeping tabs on our names. Yeah, I got... Why only 33K? You fell off, bro. Dude, I know. I'm done. I'm washed.
Redact witness names, that if they heavily redacted
over,
a lot of this, that the portions of it, that there could be some portions where only a specific witness would know the information, so it would still be revealing. So this is their argument for keeping it entirely sealed, Diane.
And this is a case that was brought by media organizations, including ABC News. Trump has spoken publicly about wanting the affidavit public, but his lawyers haven't gone to court about that. They did, however, go to the Justice Department to ask that, go to the courts rather, to ask that the Justice Department be forced to stop going through those materials that they seized from Mar-a-Lago and that a special master be appointed to review those materials instead. So what's the status of that request?
So Trump's lawyers filed this in a completely different court, and the judge who was appointed by Trump was a little confused by this. She was asking why they filed it in this particular venue, what justification she has, or what the lawyers are really even asking her to do. So she set a deadline, this judge, Judge Cannon, for tomorrow, for Friday, so Trump's lawyers can submit revisions and essentially answer her questions here. But that is in a separate court that they filed it in. She asked the lawyers why Trump's team didn't intervene in this case, in the case that we're talking about with the media. Another thing that Trump's team will also have to answer for as well. So we will see that. We're expected to see that tomorrow, Diane.
So tomorrow the affidavit's going to come out, or at least, like, unless they file an appeal and try to stop it. But